Okay, so welcome to Leading Locally. This is how to become influential in your own community. So you're in the right place if you are already involved in your local community, but maybe want to learn something new, or you're interested in getting into your local community, possibly running for city government or school board or something that would have a substantial impact on your community. So if that is you, you are in the right place. And what I'm going to be going over today specifically is what is your role as a community leader so you understand the impact that certain community leaders can have on the community, as well as how to get to a leadership position in your community. And then once you're in the leadership position, how to actually influence others to make changes. So this quote really encapsulates this for me, why it's so important to get involved in your local community, because I think that a lot of people, especially nowadays, want to hide behind their computer and they have a lot of things to say about the world, but they don't really want to put in any effort. And all you have to do is just look in your own community and see what's going on to really help people and to really make big changes in people's lives. You don't have to, go run for president or be a senator to make change. Being nice to a neighbor or going and delivering a meal to an elderly person, like that makes a huge difference in someone else's life. And those little small things make more of an effective difference in our daily lives than, what the president does on a larger scale, in my opinion. So, who is this crazy lady talking to you and telling you what to do? My name is Taylor, and I am an attorney. I am not your average attorney. I'm not a stuffy attorney where I just sit behind my desk and not talk to people. I like to go out into my community and be a part of my community. I'm very team oriented. I have owned my own multiple small businesses for 4.5 years or more. And I've also been practicing law for 7.5 years. And a lot of that is based in family law, which has driven a lot of my volunteer efforts because most of them have been with low income women and children. Because I was so heavily involved in family law and practicing it, I did everything from, domestic violence to protective services, foster care, adoption, parental alienation cases, termination of your parental rights. I have seen the best and the worst in people all across the board. So that really drove me to see how I could help my own local community. So these are the three nonprofits that I have been a part of. First one is Mental Health of America of Abilene. I am actually the current chapter president. So this is a nationally affiliated organization that deals with mental health services for local communities and getting those services out to community members that need it. And I have also been vice president of advocacy for that group as well. Junior League, I'm going to really get into Junior League because was really able to scale myself within 5 years, from being a newcomer in a new town that had no friends to the president of a internationally affiliated organization. So I have really traversed the whole gamut with Junior League, and I'm going to get into that later. And then I was also part of the Community Fund Board, which is a part of Community Foundation. And Community Foundation is in many, many towns across America. This was just our local chapter, and it essentially takes donations from the community and redistributes them to nonprofits that like apply to them for grants and things that like for projects and things that they want to accomplish within the year, so that they can be funded. So all of that said, I now do small business law, just a small plug, at taylortheattorney.com, where I help small business owners. Allow them to outsource their small business legal needs to me so they don't have to think about any of that gross legal stuff. So to dive in to my experience as a community leader, a lot of this has to do with I will say Junior League being such an incredible organization, just to tell you a little bit about them so you kind of understand where I'm coming from. Junior League is a part of AJLI, which is our international organization. So we are in America, we're in the UK, in Canada, and in Mexico. So we are branching out to other countries as well. It's just that members in those countries have to start their own branch. So um, we're international. It's a huge deal. We are the world's largest women's service organization in the entire world. So we are massive. And because of how big we are, and because I was able to reach presidency of this organization, I was able to travel all over America and receive some of the best women's leadership training that's out there. So I got to travel to New Orleans, San Antonio, Houston, and Denver, Colorado. And I also, within being a president, just as an overview, I created and maintained a $150,000 annual budget that I had to maintain every month. I also created a homeless youth program within my community. I fundraised with my junior league. This is not me fundraising alone, but my junior league, my presidency year, raised over $135,000 in 1 year for our projects. I have been interviewed by the media a lot. I got to oversee all of our community projects, our events, and our fundraisers. I got to network and collaborate with a lot of other influential community members. And I was also, and still am, the youngest Junior League of Abilene president that has ever been within our organization in our history. So, just a few things about my journey through league. And you can kind of see, and I'll get into this in more detail later, but this is my step in all of the positions that I held towards presidency.
Sorry.
Okay. So my all of this I will get into in much more detail and explain kind of how one position led to another. And so let's get into it. So these are really the 10 steps that I did to get from zero to president. And the ones that I've starred, I think, are the most important um, because they are really like the substance of becoming who you are as a leader. So it takes a lot of time and effort to get to, just coming to a new town and not knowing anyone, not having a single friend to presidency within 5 years. I put in a lot of work. So if it takes more than 5 years for you to get to that point, then that is totally normal and okay. It was so much effort. I put in a lot of effort because I care so much about my community and practicing family law. It was so closely tied to what we were, what I was doing at work as well. So it just kind of became part of my life. If I didn't say before, Junior League of Abilene, our projects are all focused on low income women and children, really specifically the ones that are at or below the poverty line. And also ones that are right above the poverty line because they get left out a lot, but they still obviously need those resources just as badly as anyone else. So that is what it just became a part of my life. So it did take a lot of time and effort to get there, but it was worth it. Along the way, I started to realize I had a lot of leadership skills I didn't recognize in myself that I had from other aspects of my life. So, just for example, I played soccer my entire life, and I even played Division I college soccer and ODP Olympic Development Program soccer. So I was very, very good at it. But I didn't really recognize that I had developed leadership skills from being a team captain and playing soccer and how well that translated to managing committee members for projects. So I started to kind of recognize by immersing myself into projects what leadership skills I had and what leadership skills I needed to develop. So a lot of that, let's get to this next part. Oh no, why does my slide keep doing this? Okay, so then the next part is find your passion. You need to find an organization or figure out exactly what you care about. And this could be different for every single community. So, for example, Abilene was, and again, I did family law, so I knew a lot more about Abilene statistics than most people, but we had the highest CPS case rate in the entire state, meaning that we had more children in child protective care than any other city in the entire state. We had a huge meth problem. A lot of that having to do with where we're located in Texas and having highways that go up and down and across to other big cities and out of state. So it was a huge transient area. A lot of drugs. 65% of the children in CPS's care, when they came into their care, tested positive for meth, and that was children ages 0 to 5, because they were literally directly ingesting it when they would say, how toddlers pull up on a coffee table to start to learn to walk. That's a normal developmental thing that toddlers do. But when they were doing that, they were touching meth and other drugs on the coffee table, or it was soaked into the carpet. And it became so bad that they tested positive for it themselves when they themselves did not actually smoke it. So 65% of children in their care were these kids. So it was a kind of a no-brainer for me to want to help these children out, because how could you not? The children don't ever do anything wrong, and drugs are a systematic problem and it's a disease, and those people need help. They don't need to be punished. But so I really was able to connect and find my passion and knew already what I wanted to do. And so then I just had to find an organization that fit my passion. And that was the Junior League of Abilene. So how I got started was I joined the organization, and the very first year in Junior League, they make you do what's called a provisional year, where they essentially like hold your hand through projects and learning about the city and the league, and training and just getting you ready to be an active member, so that they can literally hand you a clipboard and send you out into the community to go get donations, or go do whatever it is we need you to do. You were trained and ready. So that is what provisional year is. My very first year, I was then put into community partners, and I think this is so annoying. I'm so sorry. I hate that this is happening. I don't know why it keeps skipping. Just trying to go one ahead. Okay. So kind of what I was talking about, the league I found out that the league focused on women and children, and that was what I wanted to do. So my provisional year, I started taking people to lunch and started looking for mentors in the organization. So during that year, again, it's a lot of training. It's a lot of like hands-on work in the community and volunteering. And I started to see other older women, not necessarily older, but more experienced women in the league, that knew what they were doing, and they just looked so empowered and confident that I wanted to be like them. And I started taking those people out to lunch and looking for mentors my first year. Then I was put onto the position of community partners, which is one of our projects with Child Protective Services. So that was already something near and dear to my heart. And it's spelled. I started to really discover the projects within the league and how well they fit within my morals and my beliefs and everything that I wanted to do. And it really started to drive that passion for the league itself too. So not just the work I was doing, but also my love for junior league. And within this position, however, it was a two-person position. So I had a co-chair, and she was more experienced in league and honestly took over this role. But it was fine, because it really needed to just be a one-person role to begin with. And she did a great job. But because of that, I had extra time. I didn't really have my placement because she did all of the work for me. So I actually move this. So I majored in public relations in college. So I noticed that our marketing and communications director had moved away for work. and the role of director, as well as the sub roles for public relations and social media and all of that, was left totally unfilled. And you can imagine, in an organization that is trying to raise over $100,000 every year for the community, that you need to do some marketing efforts, right? So I realized that this was something that the league really needed and that they were lacking. And I honestly just had a conversation with the president at the time, and I said, hey, my background is actually in public relations. I worked at a marketing firm in college doing website design. I would love to volunteer to take on an extra position and help you guys out and do some of your marketing. And that was really what got me in the door to the leadership level. I was thrust into the position because they already had half of a commercial put together. But again, the marketing director had left. So it had left half a commercial with a news station, and they really, really needed someone to finish it up and get it done quickly before our fundraising season started up. So I literally filmed a commercial within the next 3 months, and I hadn't worked in public relations or done any of that in the last 6+ years. I really didn't know what I was doing, but I said yes, and I figured it out. So because of that, I was then put on to the communication director role that next year, which was a board position. So this was huge for me. This is really what got my foot in the door to my love for being on the governance level of nonprofits. So at the communications director level, I was able to network and collaborate with other community organizations and leaders because I was constantly having to be in contact with them to set up events or projects or programs, or where do I need to send out volunteers and how many and for however long. I was also able to really start to build my coalition of people around me. And it was really then that I was starting to be very vocal about the fact that I wanted to be president. So you'll notice was honest about what I wanted at every single step. And that's because at every single step, every single year in the junior league, we have not recruitment, but we allow everyone to fill out a member interest survey so that you can let the league know what positions you would be interested in pursuing. So I was honest from day one. I want to be the president one day. From my very first year when I was a provisional, I said, I want to be the president one day. And every single year, they followed up with me and they said, are you okay taking on a community committee role position? Yes. Are you okay taking on a project position? Yes. Are you okay taking on a board position? Yes. And it just kept going from there. So I was very, very honest about what I wanted from the very beginning, and I never wavered in that. And I think that was a big part of also being chosen for communications director over someone else that had a lot more experience in that role than I did. But I think I kind of outshined her in a way in my leadership skills because I was honest about the steps I wanted to take and how I wanted to further the junior league's goals. So from there, I was able to step into the community director role, which community director is in charge of all of our projects and programs throughout the entire junior league. So my league was 150 active women with another 150 sustaining members. So I had a 300-person volunteer capacity behind me. And so those projects were fairly large. They also were grouped with other community organizations for every single project. So we never did a project by ourselves. We always went to Child Protective Services or the food bank or the homeless youth liaison, whoever we needed to go to. We partnered with someone else in the community on that. And through being the community director, I was given this opportunity to basically assess our projects and programs and see where we were failing and where we were succeeding. And I'll talk more about that in a minute. But honestly, I wasn't able to see that we were fulfilling all of the needs we could be fulfilling. And so, because I didn't see the project that fit my passion, I created my own. And then from there, um, I was put on to the president-elect track. So in Junior League, we have a 3-year presidency track because for your president-elect and president-elect years, you were put through 2 years of training through our international organization to get you to be ready to be president of a 300 plus person organization. So a lot of training is put into these years, and it says skipped here because the moment I was placed as president-elect, our president-elect moved away for work. So I immediately skipped to president-elect. So that cut a year off of my journey, but it also cut a year out of training for me as well. So it did put me at a disadvantage in a lot of ways. And then I was able to be president. So that was my path to the presidency. And again, these are the 10 steps that I took to get there. And I laid it all out for you in story form because I think it's more interesting. But basically, these 6 things right here are the most important things that you can do. So what does it look like to be a community leader? What are the things that I got to actually do in my community and make change? This is the fun part for me. So as the president, I was in charge of all of our 300 plus members and also had to delegate all of the related work out to my board as well as my project and committee members. So this was my board, my president year, all of the members, and this was me at a general membership meeting talking while we participated in an activity. Another thing that I got to do was have a huge influence over our community projects and then the funds that we allocated towards those community projects. So that was one of my more important things that I felt like I got to do because I had the community director background. I'm very project driven. And again, I created my own homeless youth program for homeless youth. So I got to have a substantial say over how we allocated that, $100,000 plus budget every single year towards the committee or towards the city, which was really, really cool. I got to attend all sorts of crazy trainings all over the United States. I got to meet presidents from different leagues and have discussions with them. I was sitting in a group of 1,000 women at annual meeting, just looking around, like realizing the change that a group of collective women can make together, and it was really, really inspiring. So not only did I get to be trained, I also then got to train my membership on a lot of what I learned here as well. Skills that I learned while leading, I won't go through all of these in great detail. The biggest one I will say that I did not expect, I guess, in becoming president was how much I would talk to not only my membership, but the media. I, obviously had a communications director as well, but the president of any nonprofit organization is always going to be the face of the organization. So they are going to be the one that's going to send out your talking points, your fundraising points, and you can always bring in project and program chair members, but the presidency is what people want to see. So it does get a lot easier the more and more you do it. But that was something that I had to really, really do a lot of media training to get myself prepared to talk to the media and not sound stupid. Also, being president, you are also the community spokesperson. So like I was saying, you are the face of the organization. So this is me giving out checks to 13 nonprofits in our town. At a PAVE recipient award ceremony. This is me walking in a style show, again, talking at our general membership meeting. This is me online. When COVID hit, all of our meetings went online. This is me in our fundraising chair with one of the current district judges. So he did a little political campaigning here with us. These are these both are fundraising days as well, and this is our big fundraiser of the year. We just took a photo next to our billboard. And again, I was interviewed by the media so much, so much. This is just the TV interviews and the commercials that I got to do. I won't show you the commercials now. That'll take too much time. But I, again, was interviewed by the media um, countless times. Not only that, I've been interviewed by on radio and in print as well. And honestly, I will say the most daunting of all of these types of marketing is definitely doing live TV. That really scared me, and really, I had to really do a lot of training on that to not stumble my way through my words. So, what results did I get? How effective was I? So, again, I started this homeless youth program, and I'll get more into that just here in a minute on how I created that and how I did that. But it was a program that I got to propose to my league myself after a committee of us had done the research and made the decisions to do so. But my presidency results are really what I am the most proud of. So not only was I able to start a homeless youth program, I started a partnership and program with WIC, which does breastfeeding and nutrition and food for infants and children and women that do not have resources otherwise to pay for that. I also started a diversity and equity and inclusion committee where we had multiple trainings and went out and participated in some community events, which for me was really a big deal because so much of my league was very, very conservative and very, very white. So um, for us to, like, for example, one of the things I got to do is lead my DE&I committee um, when we had a Black Lives Matter protest in our city. We went and wore our junior league shirts and we made signs and we went and we protested and we supported people. And it really it mattered that we were there because people were coming up to us and saying thank you for being here. It mattered that people from the committee or the community were there that cared about them and saw them. And again, coming from a very, very white conservative demographic, this was a huge thing for me to be able to accomplish. And I did not do that alone by any means. I had the committee, but it was started during my president year. We had a huge COVID response. So to get into some of these numbers, one of the projects that we did every single Friday was deliver backpacks. They're not really backpacks, but paper sacks filled with food for children that otherwise would not have food over the weekend. So when COVID hit, they didn't go to school, obviously, and they were not able to receive those backpacks, which was a huge concern for us because, again, with so much of our population being under the poverty line, this was a huge impact on our city, not even just our youth, but our city. So we went out and we personally delivered to every single child's house over 6,500 bags of food during COVID, and that is just from March 2020 to May 2020 when they would have been in school. So 6,500 bags of food delivered within 3 months. Door to door. That is one of my proudest accomplishments, that I was able to galvanize our community members to get that done. Also, we had over 1,500 hours of volunteer effort put into the community. We raised over $135,000 fundraising. And again, these are all of the things that the organization was able to do through our projects and programs, which I'm really proud of. So, how did I create a homeless youth program? So Junior League, being an international organization, has a lot of training that we do to get to the presidency level, and that helped me understand what I needed to do to enact change within my community. So, to be completely honest, um, starting a homeless youth program was not well received by a lot of the league, a lot of the older members of the league. They did not want change. They did not want our other projects to be, kind of sidelined for this. They didn't want it to be like a trendy thing, which is insane. That we just kind of did one year and not the next. And I got a lot of opposition on starting a homeless youth program, a lot more than I ever anticipated. And because I had that opposition, I really had to figure out how to appeal to people that didn't like what I was saying and get them to understand the impact and the importance of us doing this kind of work. So this was the exact framework that I used to sway and influence those 300 plus members of the Junior League to develop a homeless youth program. So very first, I went to membership and I presented the idea to membership and said, and at the time, I had no idea what program it would lead to, but my basic idea from AGLI, our international organization, was that we could do better in our community than we're currently doing. So how do we reassess and reallocate our resources and our funds to most appropriately help the most amount of people? And basically just said, I want to analyze our projects and the money that we're spending and the outputs that we're creating and see if they're worth it. And, actually communicate with the schools and CPS and these other agencies and organizations and ask them, how effective are we on your end? So I just presented the idea to membership, like, hey, this is a research project. At the time, I was community director, so it made sense for me to look into our community projects and reassess them. So at that time, membership was totally fine with it, voted to continue on and for me to go ahead and look into it. So then I formed a volunteer committee. And when you form committees, you need to be very, very careful about who you put on those committees. And I say that because I wanted this committee to be made up of volunteers, people that really wanted to be there and to have discussions and dialogue because, some people just don't want to participate and engage in a conversation, and that's not what I was looking for. So I wanted people to volunteer for it. I wanted the board to be there because nothing happens unless it comes from the top down, and their support would mean that this would pass through. And then I also needed my community project chairs to be there so that they could speak to their own experiences of our projects and programs. So not only did I invite the current community project chairs, I invited the former ones from the year before as well. So had the ones that had already gone through their year of leading that project and had some more feedback to give. So I was very intentional about the committee that I formed, and it ended up helping me a lot later on down the road when people had oppositions because from day one, everyone that needed to be at the table was at the table. They had their opportunity to be heard. So next, I sat the committee down, and these were our goals. Then our goals were to understand your city, to select a type of issue for us to focus on that maybe we're not focusing on already, and then refocus our existing community efforts. So we met 4 separate times for probably closer to 2 hours each. So, and probably in total, probably around 10 hours were allocated to really debating and discussing these things. So we went over the current state of our projects. We went over the current state of our city. Um, we invited community leaders in to discuss what they saw on their end to see if our efforts made sense and were translating well. And then we got together and we reviewed and analyzed all of these three different parts and came to a decision. And then once we had the decision, we had to decide how those decisions would be implemented throughout the league. How are we going to make this change happen? So, in doing that, we were able to create the homeless youth program. So after we had the program kind of outlined, it didn't look this snazzy and great, but it had, the key tasks and what we were looking for, and placement summary for the project ready to go for membership. So once we had that, we brought it to membership and presented the proposal. And along with the proposal, I went over these three things that we evaluated. So not only was my committee able to see what was going on and where the analysis came from, the rest of the league was as well. And then not at that meeting where I proposed this, but at the next meeting, we invited questions and dialogue to happen. And I think that this distinction is really important because you're going to have initial reactions to all decisions people are going to have a reaction to. But your initial reaction is not necessarily the reaction and decision you're going to come to at the end of the day. So we wanted people to kind of just sit on the idea of having a new program and a new focus area. And then next month when we had a meeting, we invited them to bring their questions that they had thought through and have a dialogue with us and really, get into it. Why were we doing this? So once we did that, we were able to essentially come to a compromise. There was a few amendments that were made that membership brought to light that made the program better, honestly. So it helped us. But we then brought that final decision with the membership amendments to a vote at the third meeting after that. And then we started to allocate the resources and funds for the next year because you do your budget at the beginning of your fiscal year. So you need to have budget items already itemized and set out a long time ahead of time. We also sunset some other programs. Sunsetting is a nice word to say we got rid of programs, but people in the nonprofit world can be very sentimental and attached to their projects because they're so passionate about them and they pour everything into them. So we try and be a little nicer with our terms. So we sunsetted a few programs that were no longer needing us. And we also created partnerships with our homeless youth liaison through Abilene Independent School District to partner with them on this program. So that was how I passed a program, literally the framework of how to do it. And these are just a few tips and insights from what I gathered in the 5 years that I was in leadership and league, and as well as in coming up with this homeless youth program. So number one, we have to invest in women and our relationships with other women. So a lot of what I did was go grab coffee or lunch or drinks, or looking for mentors or maybe even people that were new to the league that showed an interest in a certain project or program. And we have to give each other the space to be vulnerable enough to really drop your guard and be honest about what you care about. For some reason, it's really scary these days to, just say what you believe. But, and even with a homeless youth program, which I thought would receive no, dissonance on it, it just really proved to me that you have to be brave and you have to be confident in the things that you believe in, because you will always, always, always have someone that opposes you, no matter what it is. Even if it's homeless youth, you're going to have someone that opposes it. And this really resonated with me so much that Mia thought, or that I showed her, that being bold can be a benefit. a lot of the backlash that I got was that I was too bold about my ideas and my thoughts. And maybe I was bold, and maybe I was, um, persistent about what I wanted. But look what I accomplished. I got it done. They didn't stop me. And I was able to show other women that were not sure of themselves that they too can do that. And that being bold is a benefit, and we should always be who we are. Another thing that I realized was that you need to come prepared, and you need to be aware of your community. You need to know exactly what is going on with statistics. So I dove deep into a lot of our community assessments. These are, oh gosh, they're like hundreds of pages of documents, but they are assessments that public organizations and nonprofits in your community, in every community, publish. You can also go to the Census Bureau for a lot of this information. Our hospitals contributed a lot of this, as well as the Texas Basic Needs Network. You can go to these resources and essentially break down what your community looks like. And I was able to show them that there were over 1,400 youth that were identifying as homeless children in our AISD school system, right in our own backyard. So why are we not doing something about it? Um, Pause it though, because sound. Um, so invest in diversity, equity, and inclusion. This is something that I think a lot of people and a lot of organizations really are scared to talk about. Um, I think that in junior league, we did a really, really good job with this. And this was not me doing this, but this was years of people in the league stepping forward and doing something. So I'll be honest about our journey with diversity, equity, and inclusion. So we had established this position as a board position probably in like 2015, a long time ago. And we were exclusively putting in Black women in this position. And we were not supplying them with any resources or funds or any training or anything. And basically just said, figure this out, tell all of the white people, all 300 white people of us, what to do, which is really daunting and overwhelming and a burden. And it's not on the three white or the three Black women in junior league to tell the rest of us what to do. We should all be educating ourselves, but we should not put that burden on them. And again, you can give this role to Black women and they can exceed. It's just we were not doing it in the way where they could succeed. We were setting them up for failure. So then we got someone named Kenna, who is in this photo somewhere back here, who really stepped up and came to me and said, I want a full committee. I want to do something with this. I am tired of seeing this role and position um, languish and no one is doing anything about it. So I feel called to do this. And she was a white woman, and I am so incredibly thankful for her because of her and because of her efforts, we really stepped up our diversity initiatives. We were also very, very lucky to that incoming provisional year receive some great members like Ada, who is from Mexico City and does traditional dancing and is very, very vocal about going out in her community and getting league members to also participate in her community as well. So this is our committee going on or participating in the Hispanic Heritage Parade in September. This is us again at the Black Lives Matter March, and this is again the parade in September as well. But by being able to have these different sets of opinions and influences and voices at the table, we were able to better refine our programs and our projects. Because if you're not a part of the target that we're hitting, this low income women and children group, you're not necessarily going to be able to understand. If you're a group of 300 white women, it's hard to understand diversity, you guys. It just is. And by having these other members at the table, and they've just added so much to our programs and projects that I cannot even tell you in the short amount that I have left here, but it substantially improved not only the homeless youth program, but the rest of our projects as well. Then another thing that was really important, and I only have two more things, you guys. I know I'm reaching my hour, but two more things. So for invest in dialogue and conversation, so many things are, or so many fights are started with women because we are not brave enough to come to the table and say, I believe XYZ, or this is what I think, XYZ. We are too afraid to have dialogue and conversation about uncomfortable things. And a big thing that I tried to do in my presidency was create a safe space for people to be able to voice their own opinions and come to the table and say what they believed in, and have a space where they could be vulnerable and they wouldn't be judged because their opinions mattered. They do matter, right? And great change can start from very small conversations. Um, and you never know what idea will pop up by the conversations that you had. And this is, I mean, a little braggy on me, and I'm sorry, but this is my very favorite thing I received after my presidency at all. That I had fostered a sense of belonging, a culture for impact, and a space to create. Like that literally brought me to tears, you guys. And I think that that's so incredibly important in an organization to care about your members and to create that space where dialogue and conversation is not only okay, but it's encouraged. And it may be uncomfortable sometimes, but in the end, it's going to be better. So when we first try and change someone else's mind, um, we tend to be very preachy about why we're right, and we tend to say why they're wrong, right? But that statistically actually makes people strengthen their beliefs more than them actually think about what you're saying. So they tend to dig in their heels with that kind of response. And that's the opposite goal of what we're trying to achieve, right? So instead of trying to force other people to change, you're better off figuring out what their intrinsic motivation is. So a lot of this is done by engaging in dialogue and in conversation, and asking them exactly why they think the way they think, why they believe the things they believe, and getting down to the exact issue. And that's a lot of why I was able to get to the junior league women, because the knowledge that over a fourth of all of the children in all of Abilene were living in poverty at any given time, and that most of them were being taken care of by a single female caregiver, that was the point that really drove things home, and really got them to realize that 6% of their children's schoolmates were homeless. I literally saw tears in these women's eyes. And it wasn't because I went over these statistics, though I did. I used them in story form, and I told them, if you lined up 10 children with one of them being your own, two of them are most likely homeless. That really resonates with people and hits them in the heart. And I also invested a lot in collaborations with other agencies and organizations. This is my partner in crime that helps me create the homeless youth program, Mandy, love her. And this is the closet that we created for the homeless youth to have clothing, essentially, where they could go in, and we made it to where it was like a store. So you see these sticky notes or sizes, and they could find their size and pick out what they wanted for the donations. And this was the leader of the homeless youth liaison at AISD, who was so amazing, he was so helpful, and was our partner in this. Now, one last thing, please, please, please always invest in yourself. You can never be overeducated or overdressed, ever. You should always, always care about educating yourself about things that you care about, that you're passionate about. And if you do that, you'll soon turn into the resident expert in that field, and you'll become more and more in demand. And that's it. So that's it. You have any questions?
Good job! Wow. I can see that you're very into this. Like, you're giving